Parsha discusses the concept of Amelek. It's a mitzvah to destroy Amelek. The Torah tells us that the things that apply to Amelek that doesn't apply to other nations that started up with us. You have to kill even the animals from Amelek. So we don't say, the animal was from Amelek. No. Timcha Zeiche Amelek. Destroyed everything. The question is that another thing that's different about Amelek is it says that Mechomal Hashem Amelek midor v'dor, from every generation. They have Mechomal Hashem. It doesn't say Mechomal Hashem by other nations that started up with us. So why is Amelek worse than the other nations? So the Torah doesn't really say too much. It says that Amelek lo Yahweh Elokim. Amelek didn't fear God. That itself needs to be explained. Where do you see that they didn't fear God? And what does that do with this? I mean, other nations also don't fear God. So what's this idea that the reason why Amelek is worse than other nations is because they didn't fear God? V'lo yireh Elohim. It's not talking about Jewish people. It's talking about Amelek, that they didn't fear God. How does that manifest itself? And how does that answer the original question about why Amelek is worse than the other nations? By the other nations, it doesn't say you have to kill the animals. But over here, you have to kill everything from Amelek. The Gemara tells us about Bakama, fascinating idea. We know there are two types of people that steal. There's a ganef and a gazlan. Well, what's the difference between a ganef and a gazlan? Who's worse?
The ganef is worse.
Very good.
I remember we spoke about this.
We did? Yeah. I said over this Briscoe reference?
I know the answer.
Oh, very good. I said over this Briscoe reference?
I don't know about that.
So we'll do it again. Could be we did. Maybe around Purim time, Parshas Zachar, maybe we did. But we'll do it again. Okay. The ganef is worse. The ganef pays double. Kefil. Gazlan doesn't. Now, what's the difference? You remember the difference between Ganef and Gazlan?
Well, one steals usually at nighttime when no one's around. Gazlan steals during the day.
Very good.
He's not embarrassed. Hey,
you got it. You got it. Very good. Ganef does it when nobody's around. The Gazlan does it during the day. So seemingly, you would think the Gazlan's worse. He's more brazen.
There's no shame.
He has chutzpah. The Ganef at least is afraid to do it. He shows some respect. So why is the Gazlan worse? He pays double. The Gazlan, that's what Gemara says. But why is it? Why is it? Seemingly, the Gazlan is more brazen. The Ganef at least has some respect for you. So the Gemara says, I'll tell you why. It's a fascinating idea. The Ganef is afraid of you. That's why he doesn't do it during the day. The Gazlan is not afraid of you or anybody. He doesn't make any cheshbonis. He doesn't make any calculations. I'm going to do it at night. I'm going to do it on Shabbos when they're in shul. I'm going to do it on vacation because I'm afraid of them. I'm afraid of mankind. The Gazlan doesn't make these cheshbonos. If you make cheshbonos, you make calculations, and you show that you're afraid of man, isn't there another being that you should be afraid of? That being sees what you do, whether or not the people that you're stealing from are home or not. He's never on vacation. The camera works all the time. So yes, the Gazlan shows that he's more brazen than the Ganef. But the Gazlan doesn't make any cheshbonos. He doesn't make any calculations. He needs something, he wants something, he takes it. The Ganef is worse. Why? Because he showed that he's afraid of mankind.
In middle of a case.
But obviously he's not afraid of God. So that's much worse. If you don't make any calculations at all, I'm not afraid of you, I'm not afraid of God, I'm not afraid of anybody. This is what I want, have you to her, I'm taking it. So yes, you're more brazen than the Ganef. But the reason why it's worse, says the Briscoe, fascinating idea. This is how he explains the Gemara. If you don't make any calculations at all, that's one thing. But if you make a cheshbon, I'm afraid of mankind and I'm afraid of God, that's much worse than not making any cheshbonos at all. That's much worse. You show that you're more afraid of man than you're afraid of God. Because if you're afraid of God, it doesn't make a difference whether or not the people are home or not. God still sees what you do or not. That's how the Brisker Rav wants to explain what the Gemara's answer was. The Gemara asked this question that we asked before. Why is the Ganef paid double and the Gazlan doesn't? So that's how he explains the Gemara's answer. It's much worse if you make cheshbonos and you don't bring God into your cheshbon than if you don't make any cheshbonos at all. Okay, so that's the Ganef and Gazlan. What does that do with us? The question that we asked was, why is Amelek worse than anybody else? Very simple. It says in the Torah that the Jewish people were started up by the Amalekites at a time when they were weak and weary. Now, it's not a history story. It's not Rabbi Bill Wine's history tapes. Okay? This is, the Torah is telling us this for a purpose. The purpose is very simple. It's so beautiful, says the Brisker Rav. It's not two separate statements. How do you see that the Amalek people did not have Yerush Elokim? It's because they started off with the Jewish people at a time when they were weak and weary. If they realized that God was behind the Jewish people, it didn't make a difference what their status was. God is going to save them anyhow. So for the fact that they bedavka, they specifically started off with the Jewish people at a time that they were weak and weary, that showed that they made a cheshbon, but they took God out of the cheshbon. Says the Brisker Rav, that's similar to the Ganef. Very similar, just like the Ganef is worse than the Gazlan. The Ganef pays double. Says the Brisker Rav, the Amalek people were like the Ganef. They made cheshbonos, they made calculations. I'm going to start off with the Jewish people at a time when they were weak and weary. Because I'm afraid of them when they're at their full strength. That's like the Ganef. That goes at night, because during the day I'm afraid of them. So just like the Ganef is much worse than the Gazlan, he pays double. Because making a cheshbon and leaving God out of your cheshbon is worse than not making a cheshbon at all. So that's the Brisker Rav's verse. So beautiful. The Amalek was like the Ganef. The other nations were like the Gazlan. Although it's bad, Gazlan has to pay when he stole, but he doesn't pay double. Doesn't have to pay double. So Amalek pays double, meaning Amalek is much worse than the other nations. That by Amalek it says that you have to destroy everything that came out of the Amalek. Not just the people, but even the animals, because we want to show that that they were much worse than the other nations, because they made cheshbonos and they didn't bring God into their cheshbon. So that's why it says that was Mechamal Hashem Amalek Midor Midor. Maybe that's what he means. That by this nation it was a war against Hashem. The other nations, they weren't fighting against God. They were just not. They didn't make any cheshbonos. They.
In this case, you can change.
That happens in war. You go against the other nation. By definition, that's what war is. You have something against the other nation. But Amalek, they were fighting with God. Like the Ganef is fighting with God. The Gazlan is not fighting with God. He doesn't make any cheshbonos. I want this object. I'm going to go and take it. But the Ganef is the one that's Mechamal Hashem. Amalek was Mechamal Hashem, just like the Ganef that's fighting against God, as opposed to the Gazlan that's not fighting against God. He's fighting against mankind. Beautiful explanation from the Brisker Rav. Why Amalek is different than the other nations. Amalek is similar to the Ganef, who pays kefil, and the other nations are similar to the Gazlan, that only pays the kefil.